Hello, everyone. So, this is part one for our discussion when it comes to chapter four, that is either channel and HSRP, or that is known as the hot standby router protocol. Okay, so the first part of our discussion will only concentrate on the either channel. So, from the previous discussion, we already I gave you a hint of what is the discussion for chapter 4, that is the either channel. So this topic or this chapter is divided into three subparts, but we will only be tackling the first part, that is 4.1 and 4.2, that is the link aggregation concepts and implementation. Okay, so this is very short discussion. And since you already understand that we can consolidate or group together different or a lot or more than one line, whether it is a fast Ethernet line or a Giga Ethernet line from from one switch to another. Okay, so we will concentrate on 4.1 and 4.2. The first half redundancy will be on the part 2, since we will be talking on HSRP uh, concept and implementation. So to get started, let's start with the link aggregation concept. So as I have said in chapter 3, the link aggregation is when you have multiple lines connecting from one switch to another switch, and then let's just say you will have two lines, and then each of which are fast Ethernet line, so a maximum of 100 Mbps per line is allowed to pass through. So if you do link aggregation, you are now creating a band or a group of these lines in order for you to have a bigger or a sum of their bandwidth. Okay, so that's what we call as the link aggregation. And it is in here, it says here that you if you are using STP, as you have seen in our basic connection when it comes to interconnecting multiple lines from one switch to another, and we have a network loop. That network loop will always be black, designated as the orange indicator, wherein that port is not allowing the connection from main, let's just say from here, from main going to S2 and from S2 going back to main. So it is preventing the network looping. So that is part of STP. Okay. So going back, when it comes to link aggregation, since we have not created the link aggregation for now, the STP has stopped the network loop by blocking the port. Okay. So the next part is that why are we going to use either channel? As I have said from the previous discussion, if you sum up all the lines, you will get a much bigger bandwidth. Okay, that's simply it. When it comes to either channel, you are just going to consolidate the maximum bandwidth and add them up in order to maximize the connection. And if ever you will have one line that is disconnected, that maximum bandwidth will only be deducted to the total of the group. So it still provides redundancy, but when you have one line that is disconnected, you will lose a bandwidth. Okay, so it's very important for you to understand that each of those lines are independent, but its maximum throughput or its maximum capacity will be increased based on how much you are going to consolidate. Okay, so with that, this is the let's move my face. Okay. this is just a simple discussion or representation on how you are going to create those Ether channel. So let's just say you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines. Then you are going to create your in either interface channel or your channel. So one logical port that is created on this, it is an interface. So just like interface fast Ethernet 1, fast Ethernet 2, and just like your VLAN 1 and then the interface VLAN 1, those are two different things. But when it comes to either channel, let's just say this is fast Ethernet 1 up until 6. Okay? So those are individual lines. But when you create now the interface channel, it is now consolidated into one interface line. Okay? And it can hold to these numbers. Okay? So that means in full duplex of 100 Mbps, it can hold 8 of those. So 8 times 100 Mbps, you will get 800 Mbps of maximum throughput for your line. So that means it can hold 6 100 Mbps lines to have a 800 Mbps channel. Okay. So if you have all of these routers, no, sorry, all of these ports in your switch in a gigabit Ethernet connection, at least you can get 8 of those and then lump it up. You will get 8 gigabit of your channel, one channel. Okay. So bear in mind, it is only capable if it's not stated here, but you are allowed to group 8 of those ports. Okay. But you cannot mix. So there is no connection wherein a channel will have a Giga Ethernet port and an Ethernet port or a fast Ethernet port in one group. Okay. So if you are going to create a channel, it should be on the same speed. So fast Ethernet should have a 100 Mbps, and then all of those should be 100 Mbps connection. If you are using Giga Ethernet, all of those should be a Giga Ethernet line. So that is the reason why in your chapter 3, most of the connection is done through fast Ethernet lines. Because for the reason that you cannot mix your Ethernet channel or your Ether channel with different speeds. So that is why it's very logical for you to use the fast Ethernet line. But you can also use Giga Ethernet line. The main problem is that most of the switches that are available, even in the market, has a limited uh, Giga Ethernet line, maybe 4 or 2 on one device. Whereas fast Ethernet, you can get 24 of those. So you can have 3 channels of uh, fast Ethernet channels. So you will have 24 divided by 8. You will have 3 of those channels of 800 Mbps line. Okay. And the Cisco switches can support 6 channels. So that is why later when we create the channel, it only says 1 up until 6. So you can create 6 channels. Okay. So that's it. And then also it supports the switch port and the trunking mode. So we will have that later. Because either channel is really intended for trunks. Okay. So if one side is configured as trunk, the other side should be configured as trunk. Either channel is a trunk connection. Okay. You cannot use access on either channel. So things to remember. You cannot mix fast Ethernet and Giga Ethernet lines. You can have 8 lines in one channel, and you have 6 channels all in all. Okay. And if you are using either channel, it should be running in a trunk mode. And that's it. Okay. Of course, you can connect or allow VLANs to pass through your trunk, just like what we have in chapters 2, 3, the STP, VTP. We are using VLANs to cross or to move through the trunk. Okay. Another thing is that when we are talking about either channel, the first thing that you will encounter in the commercial sense of the implementation for either channel is this one. Okay, this one, the LACP. Okay, but Cisco also created their own proprietary protocol that is known as the PAgP. So what is the difference between these two? The main difference is that the proprietary Cisco protocol, they are most of it, they are using the port to be aggregated. That is what we are using. But the LACP and the PAgP, it's the same in principle, but different in designation. So you can see for a while this one. Okay. So the LACP uses the keywords active and passive. So that means if your switch number one, let's just say on the top, this is switch number one, and on the side, that is switch number two. So if you have switch number one and number two are connected or configured in an active mode, you will have a connection. Okay. Switch number two and switch number one. So that means switch number two is active, switch number one is passive. There is a connection. But if those switch number one and two are configured in a passive mode, there is no trunk communication. Okay. So one, it's either all switches or two switches are configured in active mode, or one is active and one is passive. Okay. And then in the Cisco implementation or the PAgP, that is the port aggregation. Okay. So this is the meaning is port aggregation protocol, that is known as the PAgP. While the what we call as the LACP is intended for the link aggregation. Okay? Link aggregation. Um, it's they are calling it differently, but the link is the line that connects from switch one number one to switch number two. That's the link. Okay. So if you are going to take a look at this, the line that connects from main switch going to S2, that is your link. And if it is green, the link is active. If it is red, then the link is disabled or inactive. But when it comes to PAgP, what is basically um, described to how it operates is what is the port status of your switch. Okay. But even if it is technically not the same, but the operation is the same, synonymous, no, or similar. So for me, the difference is that LACP is intended for to be used by all of the devices or all of the network devices or switches, whether it is Cisco or not, Microtech, Linksys, whatever it is. LACP is there. That is the general rule or the de facto standard for creating either channel. But if you are using Cisco devices, it's not only that you can use LACP, but also you can use the Cisco proprietary protocol known as the PAgP or the port aggregation protocol. So either way, it handles the same, and it only is designated by this one. LACP uses active and passive. PAgP is using desirable and auto. So auto is for passive, active is for desirable. And that's it. So same process. If both of your PAgP is operating, both sides, switch number 1, switch number 2 are using indesirable, there is a connection. Desirable to auto, there is a connection. Auto to auto, you will have no connection. Similar to passive and passive, no connection. Still the same. Okay? That is why do not uh, do not overthink of how it works. It's just if it is active, all of the both switches are active, there is a connection. If one is active and one is passive, there is a connection. Similar to if all switches in a PAgP connection is configured desirable, there is a connection. If one is desirable, one is auto, there is a connection. But if all is auto, there is no connection. In LACP, if all is configured passive, no connection. And that's it. Okay? So it's an OR gate. 1 or 1, that's 1. 1 or 0, that's 1. 0 or 1, that's still 1. 0 or 0, still that's 0. Okay? So basically that's OR gate. The difference is that the name LACP is active and passive, PAgP is desirable and auto. Okay? So much for that. Let's create a connection. Okay? So how is the link aggregation configuration done? So we are using LACP. So in LACP, same rules apply. Both should be having the same speed. Okay? So port number 1, port number 2 should be using fast Ethernet. Or port number 1 and port number 2 and in switch 1 and switch number 2 should be using Giga Ethernet line or fast Ethernet line and nothing else. And then you have to set up your Ether channel. So let's bypass this one because the configuration here is that if you have switch number 2 running in half duplex and switch the other one is running in full duplex, you cannot do that. It should be the same. Okay? So anyway, we are not changing the duplex mode. I did not give you a configuration on that, so it doesn't matter to us. What matters is how are we going to configure. So thing is, you are just going to use the interface range. For example, you are going to connect 8 lines. So fast Ethernet range, then range it. Okay, so fast Ethernet interface range on the fast Ethernet line or interface range on the Giga Ethernet line. The next part is to run the channel group and then reminder or remember there are only 6 groups. So you can have one here up until 6. Okay? And then this one, the mode is your how you are going to or what type of either channel you are using. Are you going to use the LACP that is active and passive? Or are you going to use the desirable and auto that is your PAgP? And that's it. That's the difference of those two. Then after that, once it is created, I do not want you to do this. It interface port channel and that one. First, you are going to use exit. Okay. I have been configuring switches and routers. You will have a hard time doing this even if it has been given to be done like this. I'll show you why later. Okay. Then after that, we implement the trunk mode because either channel is in trunk mode. And then after that, there's nothing else that we will be doing on this discussion. Okay. So first, interface range for the connection, create a channel group, and then the mode, then do exit and enable the trunk mode and allow the VLANs. Just like what we have been doing in chapters 2 and 3. Okay? So this will be the last or this demo is the last part of part 1. Okay, so let's have 3 switches. One is the main, and then we have this line from fast Ethernet 23 and fast Ethernet 24 on this line. Okay, so main to S2 is fast Ethernet 23 and 24, all of which are fast Ethernet. The other one is fast Ethernet 21 and fast Ethernet 22. So from main to switch 1. And let's use the LACP and the PAgP together. Okay, so we will be configuring the LACP and PAgP on the main side. Let's start with switch number 1. Let's consider this one as the LACP. So that means if we are using LACP, where is that? For a while. Okay, so if we will be using LACP, that is active and passive. Remember, if both active, there's a connection. If one is active, the other one is passive, there is a connection. But if all are passive, no communication between those switches. PAgP, desirable, both desirable, there is a connection. One is auto, one is desirable, there is a connection. Full auto on those two lines, there is no connection. That's it. Okay. So let's get rid of this. Let's start the configuration. Okay. So let's start with switch number 1. Let's have this as the LACP configuration, and then the other one, main to S2, is your PAgP. Okay. So at S1, we are just going to configure for a while. Oops. So let's start with enable, configure terminal, and then let's change the host name. This is S1. Now let's configure this one for a LACP configuration. So let's start with interface, range, fast Ethernet 21 and 22. Then after that, let's configure the channel. So this is, if you want to take a look, that is channel group, then from 1 to 6, and then your mode. Okay. So if you forget, just use question mark, and there is your hint. Okay. That's EtherChannel. You can also use the EtherChannel protocol, but we don't really need that one. Okay. How are we going to use the LACP and PAgP? Just run the channel group. The main problem when it comes to configuring the EtherChannel is that you cannot use directly the tab key. Okay, so if you type in chan then tab, it will not go through because there are two channel names there, and then you will have two dashes. So you have to type in up until the dash, complete word, and then either you will use P for protocol or G for group, and then you can press tab. So with that, let's create channel group 1. And then if you do question mark, that is where you will see the mode. Okay. So you will have, space and then the question mark. You will see the mode. So channel group number and then the mode. In mode, type in your question mark and you will have all of this. Okay. Now, there is another statement or another selection there or option that is on. So you can use or you can opt to just use the manual configuration. So either channel only. But it is very important for you to implement either at least the LACP. Okay, so that is in LACP active and passive. So here let's start with LACP. So that is active or passive. Okay, So let's use the main as your desirable and active, and then all your remote switches 1 and 2 will be passive or auto. So since we are using LACP, we will use passive. Okay, press enter. Then after that, okay, so let's go back here. Once you have created your group and your mode, and then it says creating port channel interface. So it says here that is port channel 1. Okay, and then all the interfaces will be turned off or turned disabled and then activated again. So that is why you have your down and then it goes up again. So it's disabled and then it is enabled back. Now it is running in an either channel. Okay, so if we type in directly interface port channel, you can do that. But if you do interface port channel and tab, you cannot directly go to the interface. Okay, so I want you to use exit first so that you can run interface range like that, right? So right now, since we have created the group channel, we are going to go to the port because port channel has been created. So creating the channel group 1 by issuing the command channel group 1, you have created port channel. So now you go to the interface. Let's press enter. Interface, port, channel, and then the number from 1 to 6, whichever you have created. Okay. Let's start with port channel 1 because that is the only channel that we created. All right. Then after that, we entered the interface line of your either channel, that is channel 1. Then after that, we initiate the switch port mode trunk, and then switch port trunk. Then we allow your VLANs to flow, and that's it. So let's just assume we are going to connect VLANs 1, 2, and 3. And you that will flow from your main going to switch number 1, and that's it. Now if you want to take a look at your configuration, you can type in exit or you can end. Let's do end so that we will go to the enable mode. Then type in show and your question mark. You can use the either channel here. Okay, show either channel for show either there. Okay, so your either channel, we are using LACP. Okay, so that's one. Another thing also is to use show, and then we can also use interfaces. So where's that? Show interfaces. Okay, so show interfaces, then type in question mark. We can have this either channel and your port channel. Okay, so if we type in port channel question mark, we can have port channels 1 to 48. But question, sir, why is it that you have port channel 1 to 48 and we only are allowed to use 1 to 6? Right? So you do the math because in a switch we have 24 ports, and then if we can have it 24 divided by 6, you can have 4 of each switch. And then if you have one switch connected to other 4 uh, switches, then it is now multiplied. So that is why you will have port channels for the different numbers. But in one switch, there is only 1 to 6 port channels available. Okay. So anyway, for this the sake of learning, we just stick with 1 up until 6. So by now, let's start with 1 to 6. But uh, we already have configured one port channel. So the port number 1. Okay. So that is the interface that we have. If you want to read, it's there. Okay. So either channel, this is the machine address. It is running and the queuing and all the bytes that it is connecting, but we don't really need a lot of it. Okay, so we can use show and the port channel. We can also use show interfaces, and you do question mark again and start with the either channel. Okay, and after the either wait lang, either either channel, sorry, and question mark. It's either a modifier or a CR. Just press enter and you will see the interfaces that are connected or that are configured to run in either channel. So either channel interfaces, we have fast Ethernet 21 and fast Ethernet 22, all of which are configured as a group in the port 1, okay, port channel 1. These are all port channel 1 because we have in a range connection running in LACP. Okay. Also, pressing enter, you will have your descriptions here. And you can also use show if you want to take a look at your VLANs. We can also do that. Show VLAN brief and the show interfaces trunk. Oops, sorry, there's no trunk because we have not configured the other side. Okay. And then uh, you can experiment on the configuration. So you have your either channel, your interfaces. These two are very important. And also, if you do interfaces question mark, again, there is port channel, there is either channel, and you have your trunk. Okay, so just try to take a look at your interfaces and then your port channel and your either channel. Sorry, wrong spelling. Either channel. Okay, so show interfaces, either channel, port channel, and also here and your switch port. Okay, so let's go to S2. Let's configure this one as PAgP. So enable, configure terminal, and then host name S2. Again, let's use auto on this one. So interface range fast Ethernet, that is 23 to 24, and then we can have channel. Okay, so if we type a tab, it will not allow you to do that because once we do question mark, you can see here that there are two channel names. Okay, so that is the reason. So channel, you have to type in the correct or the entire word and then the dash and nominate the group. Let's just assume you will have group number 2. Okay, there. And then let's do the mode. We are configuring for PAgP. So that means the the zero configuration, that is auto. Okay. Then after that, as I have said, I do not want you to use interface and then port channel there. because you cannot use tab. I would rather want you to exit one line and then use interfaces, port channel, so that you can use tab. And you will already know that there is a command of interface then port channel. Okay. So we created port channel 2. Okay. So we go inside the interface of port channel 2, and then we just specify that it is a mode trunk, and then switch port trunk allowed VLAN. Let's just say 4, 5, and 6. 4, 5, and 6. Okay. And that's it. Okay. So if we do show question mark, again, we can type in either channel here. Show either channel question mark. We can use the port channel or you can use the summary. Okay. So show interfaces either channel, press enter. But if you do show either channel, we can see that there are load balance. We don't do that, but we have port channel and your summary. So let's start with the port channel. Okay, so this is group number 2, port channel group number 2. That's designated as PO2. And then we are using PAgP. Okay, so that's it for a while. Okay, so moving on. Let's just finish this configuration. Let's do main. Since fast Ethernet 1 and 2, fast Ethernet 21 and 22 is configured for LACP, 23 and 24 is PAgP. So enable, and then configure terminal, change the name, host name, main. So let's start with the interface range, fast Ethernet 21 to 22, and then channel group 1 mode LACP, that is active, and then exit, and then interface port channel 1 switch port mode trunk, and then switch port trunk allowed VLAN 1, 2, 3. That's it. Let's go exit or end. Exit na lang. And then interface range FA023 to 24. And then configure the channel. Channel group 2 mode desirable. Okay, that is PAgP, the active mode. And then exit one line. And interface, you go inside the interface. Port channel 2. Then switch port mode trunk. Switch port trunk allowed VLAN 3, 4, 5, and 6. That's it. Once you have that configuration, you will see forward natin. We will have all of those lines are now configured. And then if we take a look at the main show either channel, okay, summary, we will have now your connection for port channel 1, 21 and 22. It's running in LACP. Okay. Port channel 2 is running in PAgP. And if you want to take a look at each of those, do not use summary, but you can use port channel. Okay. Okay. So here you will have your active modes. And on the other side, you can have your desirable. Okay, so that ends the configuration for either channel. So looking back, at least 8 lines or 8 links in one channel, and a maximum of 6 channels per configuration. Okay, and you cannot use different channel speeds. You must use the same speed on your entire channel connection, and that's it. So we have now configured our either channel on S1 and S2 connected to the main. So next part will be part 2 and it will be uploaded soon. Thank you very much. See you. Bye.